Jim, let's go to the day after Mania, WWE Raw.
Well, this was, of course, April 21st for those of you keeping track, and they were in Las Vegas again at the T Mobile Arena. So I don't know how many they had for Friday Night SmackDown in the T Mobile Arena. It was a pretty good looking crowd. But then they did, allegedly, we will wait for further confirmation, 125,000 people at the stadium in 2 nights. And then they came in here with what they said was 19,262. And it looked pretty close to it because they had the small entryway with just a short screen, and the guys walk out on the ground and walk down the tight aisleway. So they sold every seat they could get in this building. And again, I wonder how many of these people are actually from the Las Vegas area. And I would think it's heavily the out of town travelers. A lot of them foreigners probably come in, and they're reacting like the WrestleMania crowd reacts, which is basically at some point they're cheering everybody for doing everything. It's not like you can get any real fucking heat, except if you're like Dominic and it's cool for them to boo you, but then they still kind of cheer you. And again, this was a lot of things happened, but it was a chance for the fans to see a lot of these people in person, and hear them talk, and then something briefly happens. And they opened up with Cena, and he got a big pop. Soon as the music plays, they cheer, God, it's John Cena. But then he comes out and John Cena sucks, because that's fun and it works with the music. And then, let's go Cena, Cena sucks chance. There's really, everybody has somebody that likes them. And some of these people, I'm pretty convinced, Brian, are doing both parts. John gives the ring announcer, calls him in, and gives him the proper introduction instead of the disrespectful one that he did. And the guy reads the big introduction, and he is getting cheers and boos. And then they chanted, Cena, Cena. And then he opened again. You think you can bully me on Friday, and because you cheer for me on Monday, I'm supposed to forgive you. This is not a functional relationship. I can still tell you to go to hell. You all owe me an apology, and you're too cowardly to do it. And then the fans chanted, we aren't sorry. But then Cena said, you are sorry. You're the sorriest bunch of people I've ever seen. That got me sued in Baton Rouge one time, Brian. Did I tell you that?
That exact line?
I went out to introduce the Midnight Express and took the microphone and said, you're the sorriest bunch of people I've ever seen in my life. And then I introduced him, and we had the match on the way back. That's when the guy took the swing at me. And fucking, I was trying to hit him, and Dundee tackled him, and blah, blah, blah. And the cops are involved. And then the headline in the newspaper said, Wrestling Spectator alleges he was, quote, fed to the lions, unquote. And the guy, because he got beat up, and the guy said the reason why he was so incensed and felt like he had to come up there and go after me was because I had gotten on the microphone and called everyone sorry. Some people are easily offended. But nevertheless, John Cena said, you people don't mean anything to me. And the fans chanted asshole at him. And then he counted down the days that they have left to see him before he's gone. And there's 9 down and 27 to go. Not matches, just appearances. Because if you say I can't wrestle, I don't have to. And then he's the last real undisputed champion because he's taking the title home and keeping it, and they can crown somebody else. And he said the best chance that you had was Cody Rhodes, and they booed. And then he blistered the fans for turning on Cody. And finally, he says, nobody in the WWE has the ruthless aggression of me, but I'm going to do something nice for you. Get your cameras out because the last real champ is here and he's holding the belt up. And Randy Orton rolls from under the ring, comes out on the other side of him behind him. And when he turns around, Cena says, shit. And Orton gives him the RKO. And that gets a huge pop. And the people chant, Randy, thank you for knocking out the fucking guy we were just cheering for. See what I'm saying here? And then Orton held the belt up and put it across Cena's frustrate body. They like everything. There's nothing these guys, I mean, if somebody just rolls in and just butt fucks one of the guys, yes, give it to him. But now and remember I said something at some point.
You certainly did. Oh, you lots.
Well, I said something when we've been doing these shows about Orton. It depended on what they had. Should Rusev have debuted against Orton? I said, depends on what they're going to do with Orton. Or, or it should have been Joe Hendry or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Well, it obviously they're doing something important with Orton. So that's why that happened.
Do you kind of rush through? Not that you have to rush through it, but do you kind of, if you're doing Orton now, is it something where there's like a 1 month time frame you could do Orton and then you got to move on to Punk or something else? Like you want to get the most out of Cena, or do you see this? I mean, this is you want to talk long-term booking with Cena and Orton goes back to the very beginning.
Yeah. And somebody said on Twitter, it's going to be the first time ever for a heel Cena and a babyface Orton. Au contraire, mon frere, because I was there. We did it 24 years ago. But I don't know if you have to rush anything because it goes through the end of the year, which is going to take us through Survivor Series in terms of major events. You got SummerSlam, whatever. I'm thinking that if they get Cena, because remember he said 27 appearances, that doesn't mean matches. I'm thinking if they get Orton and Punk and potentially, I would assume that Cody may get even. And there's you 8 months if they can do all that then. So I don't think they're rushing anything.
Oh, we got to rush through this. The Rock, all these quotes coming out now from this Rock interviewer.
Oh, you're just wanting to fucking bless him out a little bit more today.
The Rock, according to Wrestle Purist, The Rock says that TKO CEO Ari Emanuel called him for help because ticket sales for Elimination Chamber were slow and wanted something must-see. He came up with the whole sell your soul idea for Cody Rhodes.
Oh, good Lord.
Then Triple H suggested John Cena. I guess maybe that would have been after they already pitched John Cena on the heel turn, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah. But at some point, either... what they're saying is, what he's confirming is what we talked about, that he came up with the idea for Cody and they pitched it instead to Cena, because I guarantee you Triple H either said, oh God, no, you're not going to fucking turn Cody heel. Or Triple H agreed with Cody, oh my God, you're not going to turn me heel.
And by the way, he's confirming some stuff that we said on the air, and then people jumped at me, oh, you're believing Dave Meltzer. But Dave was right about it too. Geez, just because he doesn't rate the matches you like the same way you do, point that out, but you don't have to say everything he does is wrong. The stuff about Dwayne, we've said, he's got good Dwayne sources. He's got the best Dwayne sources.
He's got real good Dwayne sources, yeah. You just have to know kind of what to believe from, but both of these things can be true. Dave can be full of shit and also right about a guy.
That'll be it for now. We'll cover any other quotes from this on The Experience, but it's breaking as we're recording.
Well, speaking of breaking, they broke the string of the new women's tag team champions after Becky Lynch and Lyric Valedictorian won them at WrestleMania. They had a rematch with Liv and Rochelle and lost them back. It took 20 minutes, however. So I'm basically just going to tell you what happened in the end. Becky had been leveled, and Lyric, I should say, was fighting them off both for a while, but Liv hit her finish on her 1, 2, 3, beat Lyric, new champion. The people cheered. Yay, the heels won the belts back from our beloved babyface. It just returned. Yay. And then in the ring, Becky Lynch picks up old Lyric and hugged her and then clotheslined her and berated her and started to walk out on her, and then came back and got back in the ring and beat the shit out of her, and then left and came back in and gave her 2 rock bottoms and started to leave again. And the fans said, one more time. So she gave her another one. And apparently, because Lyric, while she was still conscious and able to, was just sitting there looking up at Becky, scared, and didn't make any move to fight back because it's her mentor. So I'll just lay here while you kick me in the teeth. And so Becky Lynch is a heel now. Do you think she's going to be the woman in this alliance that her husband is starting to put be involved with?
I don't know. We'll see if they
keep an eye out for that.
They haven't done very much to have him and her do anything other than references every now and then. But I thought it was an okay match.
Maybe they just thought to keep kayfabe up. If he's going to be a heel, then she's got to be a no good dirty heel too.
You know, I thought it was an okay match. I'm a bigger and bigger fan of Liv Morgan every time I watch her, and it's not just the skimpier outfits, which, you know, more of that, but it's what she does and how she does it, how she throws punches when she's trying to pounce. Like, there's little things you could tell she's a fan. And I really appreciate her and I enjoy her matches. But there were a few spots in here, and I liked it, where it was Raquel and Lyra Valkyrie. Is that Valkyria? It's a horrible name. But they were going back and forth, and the crowd died. Completely went silent. And I don't think it was Raquel. I think they brought Lyra up from NXT, and they've given her a good push, and it's just so
she ain't
so
getting
far.
over.
So far,
she
not.
ain't getting over.
And they're gonna try. I mean, they're gonna do something with her and Becky Lynch. So they're gonna try, but it's not there yet.
But you can tell that she knows she's trying hard to look at people and cheer for me and fire up and everything. She's doing that a lot because they ain't. But some about her facial expression, she goes from concerned and worried to confused a lot. It just, the work ain't smooth. It's not flowing. I don't, but it ain't happening for. She's not worth the lira that she's being paid. Not yet. But anyway, speaking of someone that they're paying a lot of money to, Rusev is back. Formerly Miro. And thankfully, they were teasing that we were going to get a tag team match with Otis and Tozawa and New Day when Rusev's music played and he came down the aisle and New Day bailed and got the fuck out of there, and Rusev beat up Tozawa and Otis, and the fans were chanting Rusev Day because the heel came out and beat up their beloved baby faces. And they've also announced now that Lana, that was her name there, and what was her name?
CJ Perry.
There you go. Steve's sister. You remember Steve Perry? He can hit higher notes than she can. She has signed a Legends contract, is what they announced. Now, that doesn't mean she's going to be a talent on television now. That means that they have put her in the category where, she's a legend and they might do merchandising or marketing or whatever the fuck, right? But does she qualify as a legend of the WWE? Or is this another, instead of paying you $1 million, we'll pay you $950,000 and pay your wife $50,000.
And again, I think it's all, the big picture is just locking down the industry so that no one else has access to anyone, even purported legends. I think that's a big part of it.
Purportedly.
You know, we didn't even talk about AAA, about the fact WWE announced that they purchased AAA. What do you think of this? What do you think of the idea that WWE is buying one of the only two major Mexican wrestling companies? CMLL owns their own buildings. Now they're working with AEW. The week they announced they're working with AEW, WWE announces they're buying Antonio Pena's AAA. What do you think?
Well, and that's right. I realized we didn't talk about that. We talked about talking about it. And here we haven't talked about it yet because in the middle of all this other chaos and all these shows and everything, this was just announced at what, a pre-WrestleMania pre-show press deal or whatever.
Yeah, on Peacock.
Oh yeah, by the way, we just on Peacock. They were on the cock. We just bought one of the two major promotions in Mexico, and so there's that. They had obviously Antonio Pena's passed on, right? But they had, what is that his daughter Maricela?
Oh no, he had no daughter. That's I believe his sister maybe, and his nephew.
Well, you say, oh no, he had no daughter, and maybe I remember now why that might be, but I was trying to establish the relationship. You didn't have to scoff at it so quickly. There were family members, and they've carried on the tradition or whatever. And they were there, and she looks like a fucking Bond villain if they made the fucking James Bond movies in Guatemala. But now that, and help me on this, because again, all of these relationships, there have been AAA guys that have appeared for AEW, but then in the past, but then just recently, AEW has announced a relationship with CMLL, which is the other competing promotion down there. How long do you think they've known that these talks were going on, that the WWE was going to buy the whole son of a bitch?
They may have suspected something for a while because, you know, AEW has had their issues with people involved with AAA. Penta, Phoenix, Conan. So it's not like they would be completely surprised. And again, I would hope that Tony completely understands, and I think he does, that WWE is out to shut the door on any competition worldwide. So
that is not under its umbrella or beholden to it.
That's not either owned by them or completely subservient to them.
Yes.
So,
and now we were talking about their efforts to take over the world here on I think maybe the last show we did just a few days ago. And we said they could probably do big money events in Japan on a limited basis, not be based there or do it a ton, but they could do that on their own right now. And they really wouldn't need to buy New Japan, but that Mexico, because the way they do business down there, and it's unique set up in a variety of ways, I thought they'd have more problems there than anywhere. So they have solved that. They probably agreed because they said, fuck it, we're not going to try to do this even working with somebody. We're just going to buy the fucking thing that's already there. But now the problem becomes trying to figure out a way to state this. How the fuck is it going to work for the WWE corporate office that owns this entity in Mexico to run it and to interact with the people in AAA that know how the business runs and have been running it, which is obviously, I think, why they bought it, because they know the buildings, they know the market, they know the people, they know the advertising, they do whatever the fuck. Because remember when 30 years ago, when Vince tried to work with Antonio Pena, they couldn't even schedule the meeting and get him there on the same fucking day. And then Vince completely emasculated all of the talent on his television because he didn't understand what they meant in the culture there. And the whole Super Astros thing lasted, 90 days maybe. So how are it's going to be like if there was a language barrier when Sinclair Broadcasting bought Ring of Honor. for the wrestling people trying to teach goddamn Sinclair Broadcasting how that a wrestling business worked. Well, now you add a second language into that with them trying to tell anybody that the WWE has in their office or that they send down there how the business in Mexico works. This should be interesting.
Do you think they made this move because of the relationship between OVW and their new owners, MSM? Obviously, this new multinational conglomerate there to pick up wrestling companies.
I think they probably jumped in while it was still available because they figured, well, if they've already bought OVW, then AAA's got to be next on the list. And then they'd move the whole shooting match over to fucking Faversham West Country.
You know, this is one of those periods of time, too, where you kind of, if you were a fan of AAA, at any point, you would kind of wish the WWE Network was still here because it's not like they're going to upload the entire AAA archive to Peacock or Netflix. So that it'll be another tape catalog they own. And they probably, I can't imagine they're going to monetize it that much because how are they going to do it?
Well, but hold on. They can, and then we'll move on with Raw here in a second, but I just thought of this since you brought that up. You can what do they call it? Geo block the things, or what would it be like if they had a service where all the people in Mexico that have been AAA fans could go on the internet and does AAA have this and watch all of the tapes, all of the shows? And if they don't, they might very well want to. And I don't know if people in Mexico or it's a cultural thing where they pay for a lot of streaming or not, but even a YouTube channel supported by advertising that would get tons of views, one would think there would be a market for that in the country there. And that's the WWE's expertise, is they'll stream this shit up your ass if you let them.
Yeah, and actually that's a great point because WWE has done a lot more recently with YouTube, recognizing the strength of it, like the WCW archives. There's no other home for it, and you could put advertising on it. You could get it out there to the world. So maybe you're right. Maybe that is what they'll do.
Well, in the meantime, what they're doing over on Raw was they got Io Sky, not the new, but still the women's champion. She came out and screeched a promo in barely discernible English, and then Stephanie Vacker came out and did the same thing. I didn't realize she couldn't speak English either.
She's from Chile.
Well, I'm a little cold on her. Because now I had two people that I couldn't understand nattering back and forth at each other, and then they got in a match, and it was long. And I moved on.
Did you see what happened?
I didn't see what happened. What happened?
That's a good question. What happened? What happened was Roxanne Perez attacked Io, and then Julia.
Damn her eyes.
And then Julia showed up, and she got involved with the attack as well. And then Rhea Ripley made the big save.
What?
Saving Stephanie Vacour and Io Sky.
Oh.
And then she handed Io Sky the belt.
Wait a minute. She saved Stephanie and Io. Stephanie's the one that came out and got in a fight with Io.
But there was respect, I guess. I guess there was a level of respect.
A respectable fight.
But then Rhea presented Io with the belt and said something along the lines of, I'm coming for that, or I'll be back for it, or even the announcers weren't sure exactly what she said.
So now they got Rhea playing with the children. God damn it. Well, speaking of children, the Uso children, they did a video on Jay, his family, his history, the Usos as a team, his journey as a single star, bringing from a child up until today. Wonderful editing job. Have I mentioned that modern music sucks balls?
It's the music they pick. There's always good music out there. It may not get the promotion behind it. It may not be glam enough. But there's always good music out there. It's the music they pick.
Okay, well, the music they pick sucks balls. But this segment, Jay came down through the arena. He's got the new shirt, the Heavy Yeet Champion. And they loved it and they waved and they yeeted and they chanted, "You deserve it." And Jay did his thing where he blew up doing the promo, but they love him. And then Sami Zayn came out and spent some time congratulating him and telling him what it meant to him. And then Jimmy came out and they all congratulated each other and everybody was happy. It was a very happy segment. That's pretty much that on that segment.
Nothing to add to that, really. They all left.
Yeah.
In a celebratory
They were happy,
mood.
though. Did you believe they were happy?
I believe they are happy.
It was a very convincing performance. I believe they were happy.
Did you think Sammy was going to turn?
Not really, because they're not being stupid now. They're not just doing stupid self-inflicted wound shit for no reason, like when Vince was around. And nobody wants to boo Sami Zayn. They've got something there. If they turned him on Jay, I think it would start to give people a bad taste, just with people turning and kicking other people in the balls and everything. It's unnecessary. They had enough turns. See what I'm saying to you? Do you hear me what I'm telling you?
I do.
Too much jelly on the bread, too much gravy on the plate. But speaking of gravy, I bet Pat McAfee had some in his pants. Because Gunther came down to ringside, and this was, I think, my favorite thing possibly on the show. Well, second favorite. Gunther came down to ringside yelling at Michael Cole, the things he said he's pissed about. They're chanting, "You tapped out" at him now. Gunther's in a bad way. And he was yelling at Michael Cole and slapped the headset off his head, and McAfee got up and he shoved McAfee all over the chairs and down on the floor and grabbed Cole and was trying to put the sleeper on him, but Michael Cole turtled his head. He was so nervous. And Gunther couldn't get his fucking arms around his neck to fucking put the sleeper on him. But McAfee came from the side, jumped Gunther, and started fighting him. And here came Adam Pearce and the agents. And Gunther grabbed the sleeper on McAfee. And I guess there are a bunch of guys there that are McAfee's friends, teammates, stooges, gardeners, whatever they are. They were trying to get in, and the security and the agents trying to hold them back, and the referees. And Gunther's holding that sleeper, and he's putting a little pressure on it because McAfee's face is getting red. And the fans are chanting, "Fuck you, Gunther." But he squeezed him until his britches were full, as Mama Cornette used to say. And then Gunther stalked out and was followed by the agents, and they helped McAfee out. And he was selling that like he was, come back from the brink of death. He's kneeling down and choking and coughing, and he can talk fine, I guess, following day. But I thought this was a good day. I love Gunther doing that shit because you believe it shit is breaking loose with this guy. And that was a nice deal to give him something to signal that he's going to be dangerous after he's just lost and he's out of control. And they gave McAfee the rest of the show off and were apparently had made the offer to Cole, but Joe Tessitore in a golf shirt and just unprepared. This was unscheduled, came back out after the break to take over the announce position. But Michael Cole came back and was, put off somewhat, but was going to be professional and do his job. But this was a good little deal. Did you like it?
I did. I mean, it was minutes before this. I was literally thinking, I wish something would happen at Pat McAfee's throat. I wish someone could get him to stop screaming, talking, doing anything out there. I want to like the guy, but he's the worst. And then Gunther came out like a Santa Claus and answered my letter and choked him out. And I'm like, oh, was that bad enough? And as he was leaving the arena, they showed him choking and coughing. And now he's back on his podcast today. That's a bad sign. But if this gets him off commentary for a while, even if it was McAfee building up for a match with Gunther, doing promos or something, not to say he should be competitive with a former world champion, I like that McAfee more than McAfee on commentary, just yelling randomly throughout the night and acting like a big fan.
Yeah. As I said, we need to get on the decaf and back a notch or two, and it would be a little more palatable. But and they're not going to book, I'm pretty sure, Gunther and McAfee. They're just,
So where does
this
that
was
go?
something for this was something for Gunther just to tide him over till he does something else with somebody he's going to be working with, just to get him some steam back, some, to show how verklempt he is over this whole thing, to use a Finkel word. And that I think it worked. If it was building to a match with McAfee, I don't think it would be good, because number one, Gunther'd have to beat him pretty fucking quick, and that wouldn't do Pat any good as the announcer. And just why, right? But it was just something for Gunther. Get some fucking steam on it. Speaking of steam, they had an Intercontinental title match with Dominic Mysterio defending against Penta, and JD McDonough returned and interfered and helped Dominic retain. So Dominic is up one now on his first Intercontinental title defense, and that was what it was. And there's been a lot of wrestling this weekend. So are you ready for the main event of Raw?
Sure.
Hold on here.
Oh boy, the audio died midway through it. So maybe that's fitting.
Son of a bitch. Oh well. It's these new audio filters you got. The main event of Raw was a promo, as usual. And they played the music, and here, of course, they play packages all night where you understand what happened in the big matches at Raw. So everybody was ready for this. The music plays, burn it down. And here came Seth Franklin Rollins and his new, I don't know what he'll be here, not wise man, advisor, advocate, whatever. Paul Heyman. Should they now change the music to music? Should they now change the music to burn it down and eat it up? What about burn it down and then lose the weight?
Oh, listen. What exactly is he burning down?
Well, how much weight is Paul losing? See, you can ask a lot of questions. But here, go ahead.
If he's a heel, should he be coming out there with the music, dancing, and giving the audience time to get into it?
Well, that's the point I was going to make, is here is the Paul Heyman has just stabbed his best friend in the back and betrayed his wise man. And this is the guy, Seth Rollins, that has beaten both of the people's heroes. And they've been doing it by hitting people with chairs and kick them in the balls. And when they come out, the fans wooed as much as they ever did. And when the music faded down, they cheered Seth and kept singing. They like everybody. And the chance, there was a small thank you, Seth. But then there was a bigger CM Punk. And then a little smaller OTC. And then a little bit bigger, fuck you, Heyman, because everybody could agree on that, right? At least there's some things that brings humankind together. And Seth was just standing there milking it so they could chant for everybody they liked, and, assisted living. I mean, they're chanting for everything. And he said, I took a wise man from Roman Reigns and I stole CM Punk's best friend. And now I'm the undisputed reigning blah, 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 champion. I am the winner of the main event at WrestleMania. I am. And suddenly, like Mussolini and a roll of tape, wrapping up his fist to fight, here comes CM Punk to save the night. And he's going to hit Paulie. Punk comes down the aisle. He is taping his fists already. He's ready to, it's clobbering time. And he immediately slides in, and he and Seth go to the fight. And he takes Seth to the corner. And he's beating the shit out of him. Boom. And he's kicking him. Boom, boom, boom. And Paul is looking like he's trying to sneak up behind him, or didn't know what. But Paul could creep a little bit quicker. Paul's not very mobile these days. But Punk turns to Paul, and Paul sees him, and the people chant, you fucked up. You fucked up. And Punk grabs Paul and takes him into the corner. And then Seth is back up and he's in Punk's eyes. And he rakes his eyes and he gives Punk the curb stomp. And that's when the fans are chanting OTC and we want Roman. And then Paul got the microphone and started talking while Seth was carefully standing on Punk's head to keep him down. There's a new top star in this entire industry, Seth Franklin Rollins. That's kind of what he said. And as soon as Paul said that, music hits. Here comes Roman. And so now Seth throws Punk out of the ring. He's got to be down there selling. And Roman comes to the ring and he slides in and spears the shit out of Seth. And Paul again is transfixed, like, oh shit. And Roman spins around and hits Paul with the Superman punch. And Paul Heyman took a bump that made Ox Baker look like Bobby Eaton. I swear to God, I don't know if every part of his body actually at the same time ever left the mat. I think he rolled on the side of his foot and kind of went down from calf to thigh to hip, a lot of hip. Am I lying about this description?
No.
If ropes hadn't been there, he would have rolled all the way to goddamn Paradise, Nevada.
He is brilliant on the mic, but whether it's creeping up behind someone or getting ready for a nut shot or this, he can't do anything physical without it being kind of awkward, let alone bumps, which he never took. Even in his prime, he couldn't take bumps.
I was about to say, I had that issue trying to work with him 35 years ago, 200 pounds ago. But nevertheless, he stuck his chin right out there and he was there for it. And he rolled to the ground. And then Roman was backing up and he's going to spear Paul. And I've got to think at that point, if Roman Reigns was to spear Paul Heyman, they'd get a lawsuit because Roman would bounce over the top rope and out at least into the second or third row. And he'd land on one of the fans. But as he's setting up for the spear, Punk sees that. Or I'm sorry, not Punk, but he's setting up for the spear on Paul is Roman. And that's when Braun Breaker suddenly appeared and speared the fuck out of Roman. And he revealed himself under his hoodie.
Yeah, he was wearing a hoodie. It was covered up, so you didn't know who it was at first.
Yeah, you had no idea. Well, you had no idea when this fucking giant figure comes in with the greatest spear ever. Boom. We think it's Braun. But he unmasks Braun, and that's when Punk came in and tried to save Paul, and Braun speared him. Or tried to get to Paul, rather, and Braun speared him. And then Seth hugged Braun, and Braun went to Roman, and Roman punched Braun. See, that's what it was. And Braun, in retaliation to being punched by Roman, ran a loop around the ring and speared Roman through the barricade. And then they got him down, and Braun held Roman while Seth stomped Punk and then turned around and stomped Roman. So once again, Punk and Roman have been left laying at the hands of Seth Rollins, and now the future of the wrestling business, Braun Breaker. You know, it's amazing how that nobody saw that Braun Breaker is the future of wrestling and is a main event superstar and needs to be shot to the top right away. It could have happened maybe even quicker, but nobody saw that. Did they, Brian?
You have a good track record the last several years. And on this show, or this company particularly, Jacob Fatu, Braun Breaker, you know, technically, Seth Rollins. Because again, it all goes back to the beginning. He could have been in TNA if someone didn't say this guy could be a star if he goes there now.
Just please don't sign that contract, sir. Please, I'm begging you. $40,000 a year. I believe it was what I was hearing. But they were gonna give him a guarantee for a certain amount of dates with a minimum of 40 grand or something like that. But they ended up running about half as many dates as was promised in the contract that they had showed him the following year. So
What do you think of Heyman having a group? At a minimum, it's going to be just these two, but we'll see what happens. But what do you think of Braun Breaker and Rollins together?
I think this is perfect because we said Seth, was being kind of received as a whiny heel in this. And then they've had this. Obviously, they didn't just make this decision last week. So they knew they were going in this direction. And Paul needs to be a heel. We've been saying that, but they don't want to switch Roman back because he's part time and they ain't going to switch Punk. Seth is, I think, going to be fresher because of this. And at the same time, Braun being involved and being able to sit under. I don't know if Paul has a learning tree or if he's just more like a Buddha type figure. No pun intended to some of these people. But Paul can really be hands-on helping Braun. And Braun being with Paul Heyman, the guy that was just with Roman Reigns and CM Punk, and Seth Rollins, the guy that just main evented WrestleMania, it makes him look like a bigger star. He's not playing with children anymore. So they just had to get that pesky belt off of him so they could elevate him. I believe we talked about that.
I really love where this is going. And then, Punk and Roman are going to have to get together and kind of work together and say, who can we call that could outsmart Heyman? And then they can call you. And then we get you against the two guys that you picked that Heyman's somehow with, you guiding these guys, and then the battle over who gets Brock.
No, I think they ought to call Stephen P. New. I thought that's where you were going.
Oh, no, I was going to you.
Don't call me. Don't call me. I'll call you. Don't call me. I'll call you. But in the meantime, call Stephen P. New. 877-50 Steve.
Well, again, sneak attack.
No, they're not setting anything up to call me to fucking. No. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. But nevertheless, yes, Heyman is putting together another dangerous alliance. And boy, howdy, where are they going to go from here? But anytime I can see more Braun Breaker, I'll take it.
Well, we talked about WrestleMania, him losing the Intercontinental belt. He didn't get pinned. He just lost the belt. What are they going to do? Obviously, that's kind of a setup for we're going to elevate him past what IC title level is, kind of. And here you go. He's now mixing with the main guys, and he has Heyman as a manager. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, I just had to drop that pesky belt. Remember when guys always wanted to win the belt because that meant you were a top guy, right? Promoters could even give a guy a belt and pay him less and he'd be happy. But now everybody's got a belt. So you need to drop the belt sometimes so you can get in the money spot.
Not only do the wrestlers have belts, literally the celebrities they introduce walk out with belts. I saw more celebrities holding belts that they never won than I've ever seen before. It was a rarity. I remember there was one kid who used to go to the Nassau Coliseum when I was a kid, and he had like a bullshit belt. It wasn't even like a WWF replica. Yeah. It was just a wrestling title belt he got out of like a magazine, and he would hold it up like the wrestlers were going to see it and be like, it's the champ, or whatever they were going to say, but it stood out because no one had any belts. Now everyone has one.
Well, yeah, the fans have belts now because now that they make replicas and that's an actual business and this goes on, the fans now have belts that are much better looking than the actual goddamn wrestling belts from 40 and 50 years ago because I've had a number of them in my hands of both categories. And the real promoters' belts look like shit compared to these fucking things. They were beat up and pissed on and bled on and screws missing. I read the Southern Heavyweight title belt in Memphis for almost a year one time had a fucking decal of an eagle stuck on the front of it because the fucking metal eagle fell off.
Someone scratched the word stooge into the front of the Mid-Atlantic North America, Mid-South, the front of the Mid-South North American Championship.
Yes. Yeah, and Kerry Von Erich scratched his initials into the domed globe NWA World title belt. Oh, well, what are you scratching your initials in this week?
That was WWE Raw